Hey, we're sitting here today with Keith and Angela Phillips, and Keith and I go back so far that the road out in front of Storybook Home was dirt, okay? And Keith's going to tell us about Grace Grassmuck and the origins of Storybook Home, and then Angela's going to talk about when she first came and what it was like here at that time, and how we've just sort of evolved as a community where we do a lot of fun things and have a lot of history. So Keith, start off with Storybook Home and Grace Grassmuck, please.
All right, will do. My grandmother was originally living in Ohio. She was married to another gentleman by the name of Gillespie. Unfortunately, she got divorced, and my mother was 4 years old, and ended up meeting who I considered my grandfather, William F. Grassmuck, or Uncle Billy, as he was known in the mountains. And they had had a major. He owned a major jewelry store in Cincinnati, Ohio, which, when the Depression hit, went bankrupt. So they took their Paris Aero car and their little trailer, and they went out to California and panned for gold for 3 years.
I didn't know that. That's wonderful.
During which my mother kept a little journal. She was now five or 6 years old, and my grandmother, is self-schooled or whatever, and teaching her to write down. So she said, Papa gave Grandma 25 cents to go in and buy fresh vegetables for the next week, and you can imagine how far the pennies went and the dollars and all that. Anyway, they were out there for about 2.5 years, and then they came back to Fort Lauderdale, where my grandmother's my grandmother's sister, brother-in-law, were staying or had a home, and the brother-in-law was owned Gate City Lumber Company, which in those days was like the Home Depot. They did the roofs, the plumbing, everything, okay? So my grandmother said, look, we're not making any money on jewelry anymore. We've got to find a job. I got to work. My grandmother happened to be 20 years younger than my grandfather, and she was a dynamo. So she said, I've got to do something. And so the brother-in-law suggested, well, you want to build a house. I'll spot you all the materials, and when you sell it, you pay me back. So she went in Fort Lauderdale, she found a lot, and she built a home. It sold the next day after they advertised it. She then built 13 more homes in the Fort Lauderdale area and provided enough money to retire. And so then they said, well, gee, California was so nice. Why don't we go back and find a place to live out there? Just as they're getting ready to leave, my mother says, hey, I got a little surprise for you. You're about to become grandparents. We've got, he should be here about November 26, 1947. And so they said, oh, we don't want to be that far away. Let's see something closer that's in a cool climate. Well, it so happened that Percy Threadgill was living in Miami Shores. He'd already developed parts of Hialeah and had some money. And it was just after the Depression, I guess. And he had found these mountains, and he went and bought 3 of the peaks for 50 cents an acre.
6,000 acres for 10 cents on the dollar.
It was just unbelievable what he found. And he had advertised in the Miami Shores newspaper vistas and cool streams and cool climate and mountains
and this was in Florida, where before air conditioning.
That's correct.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
right.
correct.
So,
And that was the reason they wanted to leave Florida, because it was so blasted hot down there during the summer. So my grandmother thought nothing of, let's drive up there and see what it looks like. So she comes up to then Burnsville. The new Ray, I think, was already in maybe being built or something, but they ended up forwarding the dirt road and the streams because bridges hadn't been built yet. And she's coming all the way up here and all the way up to Cattail. She passes this cabin, and that's what this was. This was a cabin at the time. And she asked the lady that was, sitting out on her porch, is Mr. Threadgill up here? And she says, yeah, he's up there a little ways. Go on up, So my grandmother went up, saw Percy, looked at the lots he was offering, and said, okay, well, we'll let you know. When she was coming back down the mountain, the old lady was standing in the road. She says, wait a minute. She says, I'm almost 90 years old. My kids don't want me living by myself, and they want me to sell this place and leave. Would you be interested in my house?
Wow.
And that's this cabin, I looked at it, the original pictures of it, and I'm sure we'll show you somewhere. But my grandmother went in, walked around, and said, "Here, I'll give you a check, $1,700,"
Wow.
and bought the place as it was. And then, decided because she was a contractor and built 13 homes, she decided she was going to modernize it, and that's what she did for the next 2 or 3 years. Now, my parents decided to vacation up here in 1948. I think it was September. That was my first. I don't want to say it was my recollection because I was only about 9, 10 months old. But I did take my first steps up here, they said.
That's terrific.
So that's when Cattail, started out. My grandmother had taken the house and built a living room, a bedroom, a bathroom, a dining room, and
And Keith, do you remember the garden that she had with
Yes.
Louise Hensley and Grace Grassmuck's
She,
garden?
in fact, she had like Irene McPeters, helping out in the garden, and a lot of the mountain people that knew that kind of thing. And she raised corn, and
She was sharing that food because it's
Yeah.
a huge garden.
Oh, yeah.
Giant labor.
And in fact, she canned, and downstairs in the pantry we had jars and jars of canned everything you can imagine, from cucumbers, which became pickles, beets, corn, green string beans, whatever. Okay, she made this place
She could do
a
it. She had a green
self-serving
thumb.
place.
Yeah.
And then she decided that, hey, why don't I try a bed and breakfast? And so for 2 years, she advertised in the New York newspapers, come to North Carolina and stay for a week or two. And I remember a few of the people that she had up here, Lloyd and Byron were two of them, and a couple others that came here for a week or two. And
I wonder if that's the New York connection because we have the Percy Threadgill Florida connection. How did we get? But there are a lot of New York people.
I think it was strictly from tourists. Where could we find tourists who have the money who would want to come to a cool climate?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have done it in the Florida, but anyway.
So Angela, then so you came, and then eventually your children came. So what was that like?
Exactly. Keith and I met in May of 1970, and I calculate that my first visit up here was probably the summer of 71. We were married in February of 72, and Andrea was born in 73. And she took her first steps up here.
Oh, nice.
So the tradition continued.
Yeah.
And Keith, of course, was working. I was a stay-at-home mom for a while. As the kids got older, I think about junior high school age, I started working part-time back again. But whenever the summer rolled around, Keith would always want to come up here. And the kids loved it. They loved swimming in the bathtub. It was just a great place for them to come.
And do you remember square dancing and that kind of thing? What was the hall like?
I didn't make the square dancing, I don't think. But I do remember the covered dish dinners.
Okay.
And and the bingo games.
Bingo.
I did catch some bingo games.
The bingo equipment survived Helene. Okay, we're bringing back bingo. I promise. Seriously.
And I remember one year we brought our little dog up, and everybody went swimming in at the bathtub, and here's our little dog, and he's on the shore watching. All of a sudden, he jumps in, and
starts swimming around with us.
And I'm thinking, I don't know, he's not used
Does
to
he
this.
know how to swim?
Well, he could swim, but the funny part was there was a big submerged rock,
Right.
and the kids could stand on it,
Right.
and he swam to them. And he was, but his legs were like this. They stood up. He tried to stand up, and he sank. That's when I went in.
That's the bathtub. Yes.
Now,
we've
but
missed that.
now, just prior to me bringing Angela up here, I had, I think, 14, 15 years of me coming up every summer, and Buzzy being my, good buddy.
Next door neighbor, right?
Next door neighbor. We hung out together. We rode a wagon down from the top of the mountain to right in front of the house here.
Right where Barry
No
Fitzgerald
breaks.
lives now, right?
Just
Yeah.
the way we went, fishing and chopping wood. I mean,
BB guns.
Fireworks.
Fireworks.
Yeah, we were always sticking the fireworks in the big rock behind your house, and just typical boy stuff. I mean, you couldn't ask for any better, life as far as
We
what
were free range
doing.
kids.
Yeah, we were.
what did your grandmother, what did Grace say? Something about come when you hear the bell, right?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
In other words, you could. All right. In the morning, we'd get up and I'd go over and see if Buzzy wanted to do anything. And next thing I know, my grandmother would say, "All right, you guys take off. Have fun. See you later." And I'll ring the bell. You know when you should be coming home. You know around dusk.
Right.
In other words, don't bother me. You're gone.
And you could hear that bell all up and down the creek. And,
Oh, the big bell. The
Yeah.
dong dong dong. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was also supposed to be a fire bell, but we realized it didn't quite reach the Pensacola.
okay, good.
And,
Well, I remember Grace when Susan and I would drive up with the kids, and from Indiana we'd come, and she'd see us coming and parking out here in the grass. Buzzy, come on over here and get some hot biscuits.
Well, along the same lines there, when you and I were fishing up the stream there by Mary Melton's, she saw us one day and says, "Well, I once caught a fish in that pool right there, and she said, "Are you boys hungry?" Well, yeah, we're always
We're
hungry.
boys, right?
So she went in and made us some bologna sandwiches or something, came out, gave them to us, and we kept on fishing. But that's the way the people were up here, at the time. And like Roland Craig, he was the postmaster general of the Lower Keys in Florida,
Okay.
from Key Largo down to Key West. Roland built a house up here. And he was just a good, jolly guy, and he used to bring fireworks from South Carolina and then say, "Hey, come on up to my place. I got some fireworks for you." We'd go up there, and next thing you know, we'd be showing up, throwing them off this front porch and blowing up things and everything else. But just, good old times. And
Pre-internet,
then-
we had to talk to each other. We had to go out and do things.
Yeah. Mabel West used to raise parakeets in her house, and my dad says, "Well, maybe we'll get one," And so one of her birds just laid an egg, a couple eggs, and she says, "Okay, I'm going to put a little mark on this one. This will be yours." And all of a sudden, there's, it hatches, it grows, it's big, and finally, when it's big enough to be on its own, it's ours, and we took it home. Became Snooky Phillips, my father's, nickname in college was
Snooky Phillips. Oh,
Yes,
nice.
So,
nice.
and that's just another person up here.
Yeah, Keith and Mary Lou helped keep the place together, didn't they?
They
For a
absolutely
long
did.
time.
They did.
Yeah,
Dad,
they
Dad
really
then
did.
tried to
Yeah.
fix a lot of things himself
Yeah.
and keep it going.
And they were a fundamental
And,
part of the community.
But we had a
Yeah.
rocking good time, and of course the general store was a place to go down there and get whatever you wanted. And I remember B.B. Wilson there behind the counter, and they had Campbell's soup, and they had a mock turtle soup, and no, everybody else either quit buying it or couldn't find it or whatever. He still had a can of it.
Mock turtle soup.
Mock
Okay.
turtle soup.
Thank you,
Fake
Billy Brooks.
turtle soup.
Yeah.
But it was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And so my grandmother bought me the can of it, and we had it for lunch.
Well, as
So-
long as we still have moon pies.
Oh.
Okay, I think we're in good shape, right?
Keith just got some in his
Yeah.
Christmas stocking.
Nice. Danny has moon pies down
Oh,
there,
my
so-
God.
And so does Wilson's store.
And
Well, yeah. Well, thank
So-
you guys. We've hit 13 minutes,
Wow.
which is a good video,
Well.
and we appreciate this, and we'll think of some more time to talk together.
Yeah,
Okay.
Absolutely.
thank
Okay.
you, Buzz.
Thank
you.
Take
Thank you all.
care.